Welcome, everyone. Hello. Thank you guys for all joining. We're going to give everyone a minute or so, but in the chat, let me know where you guys are calling in from. We always like to see where everyone is. And also, let's make sure this chat is working. Hopefully, I set this up correctly. Welcome, everyone who is joining. Right now, we are having folks just muted just for the first part of the presentation, and then we will allow unmuting for Q&A, just to make sure that we don't have any issues with the noise or anything. But hi, everyone. Where's everyone calling in from? Sorry, guys, give us 1 second. Just having a small technical difficulty. That's my fault. Andrea, are you able to unmute over there? No? Okay. 1 second, everyone. Welcome also. Chat is disabled. Okay. Give me 1 second. Can anyone see the chat? Okay. Now, Andrea, you should be good to go.
Yes, I got my mic back. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited that you're all here. Thank you so much for joining us.
We are having an issue with the chat, so just give me 1 second to make sure that everyone can access it. And I apologize. I thought I set this up correctly. I'd like to think I'm an expert since I live on Zoom these days, but that is not the case. So thank you for bearing with us. Okay, let's see. Give me 1 more second. I'll play around with the chat. I apologize about that, but we also have our Q&A feature that is working. So if you have any questions as we're going, I'm going to be fielding those and making sure that Andrea can answer them. But I'm just cautious of time, and so I want to kick off and get us started, and I'll work on chat in the meantime. So I apologize again for any of the technical issues, but the important thing is hopefully everyone can hear us and is here, and we are so excited. So quickly just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for joining and taking some time out of your busy days to be here. Looks like we have folks in Seattle. I am in Arizona. We probably have people all over. So let me know where you're calling in from in the Q&A feature. It's always exciting to see where everyone is. For quick context, I am Mel. I am, someone from Texas. Hello, welcome. I am the head of marketing at Herd. So if you don't know Herd, I just want to give a really quick overview, and then I'm going to hand it over to Andrea. So Herd is the all-in-one financial platform built for mental health professionals in private practice. So we help you with your bookkeeping, provide quarterly tax estimates, help you with your annual taxes. And our whole goal is to take the back office burden off your plate, ensure you stay tax compliant year round, and also equip you with powerful financial information that you need to run your practice with confidence. So that's a little bit about Herd, but let's talk about Andrea, our guest. Thank you, Andrea, so much for joining us. Andrea is a bookkeeper, a friend of Herd, and the owner of Liquid Cents Bookkeeping. And so I will pass it over to Andrea to talk more about all things financial for private practice.
Thank you so much, Mel, for having me and for everyone that is here. I'm going to go ahead and just start sharing my screen with you guys. So let me know if you guys can see this. And let me get this. All right. Can you guys see my screen? Let's see. Just let me. Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. All righty. So like Mel was saying, I am Andrea Rotondo. I am a bookkeeper and the owner of Liquid Cents Bookkeeping. And just to kind of like give you a like who is Andrea, I help new solo and group practices with their bookkeeping side of things. But I do it in a way to help you manage your cash flow better, to understand your finances. And the way that I do this is through organized financial systems. And that is probably one of my favorite parts about all of this. And that's why we're talking about this today. I live with my husband and my two kids in South Florida. So shout out if there's anybody from Florida. But because we were a military family before, we also lived in Michigan, in California, and in Maryland. So if there's anybody also from those states, shout out to you too. Just those states have a special place in my heart. So just wanted to give a quick shout out to those locations. And I want to tell you kind of like a quick story about me so that you can kind of like learn a little bit more about me. I started just one day I was like, I'm going to start running. And I started doing like running about a year ago, a little bit less than a year ago. And um, now if you were to know a little bit more about me, like I'm not like a professional, like workout person, like even just by the way that I say that, you can tell that. But I started running and I was just gonna like do it to get better, like my health to for a challenge. And just because my like workouts before were like feeling kind of boring. So I started to run, like I said. And now when I say run, I mean walk, jog, and like attempts at running. So this is like about a year ago, and I'll tell you why this is important in a couple of minutes. So I started running, and then just I really felt like this is not for me. Like seriously, my legs were on fire all the time. My feet were killing me. I was like, I just really think that this is not gonna be for me. Like I have to figure something else out because this is so hard on my body all the time. But I didn't quit. And what I started to do was just doing like little tweaks here and there. Like I changed my shoes, or like as you can see that I wear glasses, I have to either wear glasses or prescription sunglasses. So I had to like make that choice. Or like, do I want to wear a hat or not wear a hat? And all of this time, like I said, probably like a little bit under a year ago, I started little by little to get better, even though I might not necessarily like get the feeling that I'm getting better every day. I can look back and I can see that I get better. And the way that I can see that I got better is because I always had my phone on me with an app. I didn't get super fancy and I didn't get like this. You know, there's so many things. If you're a runner, you know what I'm talking about. Like there's all sorts of numbers that you can track. I just wanted to have my phone on me, know how for how long and how fast I did it. And just last month, and this is like huge for me. I saw like my stats or whatever that I went out for runs 27 times last month. So that for me, again, now I'm not trying to compete with anybody. I'm not training for a marathon or any of that. I just want to be consistent and just feel in my body. I just want to feel better. And for me, that was huge. For me, looking at that number just felt like such a huge accomplishment. Like, wow, I'm able to do this. And it's just so nice to go back and like compare that to the prior month and then that prior month to the month before that. And all the way since the moment that I started running a little bit under a year ago. You know, why does this matter to you? Why should you care that I started running a year ago? It's because I think that building those financial systems for your practice, it's kind of the same thing. Sometimes we get started, we're excited, we have a vision for what we want to do. Sometimes we're not super clear on that vision, but those little things along the way kind of make us feel like this is too much. This feels hard on my body. This feels like I should not be here. And I've heard that several times. Like, I just really don't know if I should keep doing this. Like, is this really for me? And not as a honest, real decision making point, but it's more of like, overwhelming in that moment. And then we go back to, okay, I got this. And then you feel there's really heavy moments, and then we go back to normal. But just like I was telling you with my story of running, in reality, walking, jogging, and sometimes running, is that you can make those tweaks. Just like I did little tweaks here and there to get better. And I actually got better. And I'm actually running without dying. And I'm actually getting better and faster. And I cannot almost not recognize like my numbers from how it was last year. My numbers, like meaning my speed and the distance that I was doing a little over less than a year ago. I've come so far, and I'm so excited generally because I'm so proud of myself that I did that by just, again, those little tweaks. And the reason, again, why I'm telling you that is because I really believe that those with little tweaks that we can do here and there for your financial systems, you can also feel that. You can also kind of see the future, like, I am going to be at a better place. I can get better. I don't have to feel like everything sucks all the time. Sometimes we do feel like things suck, and that's normal, but then we overcome that. And that's what I want for you. I want for your financial systems to feel at some point, depending on the day and what we're doing, it is possible for you to feel excited and to feel like you got this, and for you to not feel like this sucks all the time. So I want to ask you a question. You can tell me your answers in the chat. If you remember a time you wanted to look away from your spreadsheets, like you were just working on your numbers and you're like, I can't do this. I just want to, like, that's it. Or if you have actually done it, like close your screen at a moment of frustration. Let me open the chat over here because this went away. All right. I'm just looking at your answers. Maryland, not a runner. Definitely. Yep. Every time you try to fix an error in QuickBooks, oh my goodness, like literally, I was just doing that this morning with somebody. You're not alone all the time. Yes. Now, let me ask you a different question. Whoop, I went back. Okay. Now, do you remember a time when thinking about your numbers made you question your choice of actually launching your practice? Like, this is so hard. You're like, considering all of your life choices at that point. Tell me, what do you think? Have you been there before? Yes. Veronica says yes. Christina says yes, for sure. Yep. You see, you're definitely not alone. You're in the right place. We all have been there. Now, I want to tell you about understanding your financial systems, because really, like I was telling you about my running situation and doing all of those tweaks, making some tweaks and building the foundation in a way that can help you support your long-term process can really change that, because I don't want that for you. I don't want you to feel, yes, I hate this. Yeah, like I want to be able to ask that question and you're like, that's not me. Like that was before, and I know how that feels, but that's not me anymore. And I know, like, I get so excited about this. Like, I literally get chills just saying, like, you in the future have the possibility of saying, no, that's not me anymore. All right. So I want to tell you what are financial systems, right? Because we can talk about financial systems here and there, but maybe we don't even know what financial systems are. This is like buzzword, and systems is like a trendy thing that people are talking about, but what really is financial systems? In essence, just to kind of like give you the basic, all you need to know, your financial systems is like like basically like a structure. Think about it like a machine or a structure with the processes or procedures that you have for things that you do, and any tools that you're using, any tech, or any other resources, or any specific people that do things at a specific time. So you kind of already have systems in place, even though you might not be aware of it, because you are currently doing something. So the goal, again, is to get those to be better. Now, why are they important for you? Why should you care about these financial systems? And the reason why you should care about them is, I'm going to just give you two reasons. The first one is because depending on how you build them and the tweaks, like I mentioned, and how, like what tools you use or when do you choose to do certain things, that is really going to either help you get better at it or be clunky. So the whole process of you managing that system feels great, feels like you can do this effortlessly, that it's like a well-oiled machine, or it just sucks. Like you feel like when you're running and it's like it started to rain and then you slipped and you fell and then there's, I don't know, some animal came out and ran. Like I was running one time and I was running like a crate, like just I had so many bugs chase me and I'm like, I'm not coming back to this place again. And I haven't been back on that route because there were so many bugs. I'm in South Florida. It's basically summer already. All the animals are out. So I just run in different places where there's less bugs. So you can either choose, again, like in my case with the running, I can choose what route I'm going to take based on the weather, based on how far I want to go, so that my run, I can actually make it happen. So that is why, again, your financial systems are important, because of all of those pieces that you're choosing to build with are going to make the process either feel like you went for a nice run or awful and you just hate it and you want to quit. All right. So before we even get started, I want you to kind of have clarity on a couple of things. So I want to ask you if you know in the chat what your legal entity is or your tax entity. You don't have to tell me what they are. Just tell me, yes, I know what they are, or no clue. I feel like I know what it is. I'm not sure, when I mention legal entity and your tax entity or your tax election. Oh, see, yes. All right. We have people knowing. Nice. Oh, you're even giving me the terms. I love it. Great. LLC taxes and S corp, says Abby. Great. Awesome. That's really good, because it's very common for business owners to not know that. And why it's so important for you to know these things, it's because depending on who you are on this, like on these buckets, the outcome or your responsibilities or what is expected of you will change. So if you are an LLC, if your tax is an S corp, then the tax forms are going to be different. Your deadlines are going to be different. The type of bookkeeping is going to be a little bit different. If you are a sole prop, it's going to look different than an S corp. So it's really, really important for you to know this. So if you don't, homework for you. I know, don't hate me that I'm giving you homework. You have to go figure it out. You can check in your tax return. You can look in your documents when you started your business to see what do you find. And based on that, you can make a plan for either a sole prop or an S corp, which are typically the most common elections for therapists. Now, this last one, I don't want to ignore, which is your goals and long-term vision. And why is this so important for you to have some sort of vision before you get started? It's because we sometimes make the mistake of creating this really cool, like, again, financial systems for who you are today. But once you continue to grow or to make changes and to add things, you have to dismantle everything and rebuild it from scratch. And that can be so taxing. It can be so hard. It can kind of like disrupt the whole process that you have. Sometimes it could like mean that you're not ready to receive like this, like you're making sales, but now what do I do? Like it just gets so messy. So you also want to take into consideration where you want to be in the future, so that as you start building your systems, you can think, okay, the things that I'm going to choose not only have to be enough for today, but they have to be enough for future me. Does that make sense? Let me know if you are getting what I'm saying. Let's see, yes. All right. So let's talk about the key components of a strong financial system. This is what we're here for, right? So let's get started with this. The first one is understanding your legal and tax entities. We just went over this. If you don't know what they are, you have homework. I'm not going to come ask you, but you need it. So don't forget. The next one is going to be business bank accounts. Now, you've probably heard this before, and it's most likely because well, it's not most likely. It is because it's so important and it's so necessary. And this is like 95% of the ease of your bookkeeping itself is going to be achieved because of this step. So you want to make sure that you have completely separate bank accounts from your personal bank account. Even if you're operating as an individual and you're a sole prop, you can just simply open a new bank account under your name and just treat that or use that exclusively for quote unquote business, even though there's no legal entity created per se. You can still separate that. If you do have a legal entity like an LLC created, you want to make sure that everything is under that name and that you're not mixing. That's called commingling of funds. But basically, it just means you just have to keep separate your finances and your business. That is going to be one of the most important things. But let's take it even a little bit deeper. It's also the bank that you're using. So remember how we were talking about making tweaks for things to work out for you? It's not just a matter of, yes, I have a bank account. Of course, I have a bank account, but is what bank are you using? Is it working out for you? When your accountant asks you for statements, how are you sharing those statements? How easily can you share those statements? Can you add your accountant to your bank? If you're using QuickBooks or anything else, does your bank have the ability to connect with that? So there are definitely several layers that you can go deeper from each one of these sections. So that's going to be one of the first factors. The next one is going to be a HIPAA compliant payment processor and any other tech involved. This is going to be like a bulk section. So you want to use HIPAA compliant payment processors. And now let's talk about, for example, receiving payments from Zelle or PayPal or Venmo. One of the reasons why I want you to stay away from that, there are several, and you can look. I actually have a blog post for this. You have the QR code if you want to read that. But it is, for example, against their terms for you to use their payment platform to receive payments for therapy services. Or if you think about it, for example, our next step is going to be bookkeeping. All of this information that goes in here that lands in your bank account is going to land in your bookkeeping, right? Your bookkeeping is also not HIPAA compliant. So you want to make sure that whatever is happening in the moment of you getting paid, you're aware that that's also going to land in other places. So not only you have to be careful of HIPAA compliance the moment that you're accepting your payments, but also once you receive that payment, where is that information going to go? Who's going to have eyes on that? Your bookkeeper, your accountant, because ultimately it's still your responsibility to make sure that no PHI, no client information is mixed with your accounting. So I want you to think about your billing is separate from accounting. You're not going to use your accounting software to bill your clients, to keep track of who's paying you, or any of that. It's just to reconcile the actual numbers. It is in this process, in this step, or in this section of your financial systems that you're going to think about what makes sense for your billing. Am I going to use an EHR? Which EHR am I going to use? I have to connect my bank account to this. I'm going to only use this payment processor to charge credit cards and whatnot. So the next step is going to be, or the next key component is going to be your bookkeeping. Now, when we think about bookkeeping, sometimes we kind of like group everything else under bookkeeping. I want to talk about bookkeeping as an isolated, like this is in reality what bookkeeping is keeping track of your financial activity. So all the revenue that you're receiving is going to go in one category. All the expenses that you're paying, they're all going to go in different categories. Depending on your practice and what makes sense to you, you can tweak the name of those categories. And that's going to be like, okay, that's it for bookkeeping. Now we're going to move on to the next key component, which is your accounting. Under accounting, I want you to think about financial reports and the result of that bookkeeping. And if you kind of notice, it's kind of like a cycle. You get paid, the deposits get into your bank account, you charge your clients, you pay your bills, you pay your expenses, and now bookkeeping is done, accounts are reconciled. Now the product of that is going to be financial reports that you can look at. usually this is the spot where a lot of practice owners kind of like stop, like, okay, I'm good with compliance, but that's it. That's as far as I'm going to make it. And again, I want to take you back to my story, like when I wanted to give up and I was like, my legs are on fire. What's going on? I have bugs chasing me. It is 95 degrees and it's only May. What's going on? Like, I want to give up, but I make changes. I can run earlier. I can run late, earlier or later. Yeah, I said that right. I can wear different things. Like, I'm going to make changes so that I can continue to run. This is the moment where you don't want to give up, because it is in the financial reports like stage of your financial systems that you as the head and the leader of your practice gets all the goods. Like, this is where you can know how much money you made. This is the answer to the one of the most common questions is, where did all my money go? Here, you're going to find that answer. Now tell me, I'm going to pause right there, and I want to know how many of you have felt or have even said that, like, where did all my money go? Or you look at your P&L and then you're like, it says that my profit is X number, but I don't have that in the bank. Have you ever felt that or asked that yourself? Every month. Yes, all the time. So this is going to be the spot in your financial system that is going to give you that answer. This is where you're going to see where your money went. This is going to tell you, you can actually get a percentage, for example, for taxes. So that's going to be the next stage. Let me go back over here. The next stage in your components of your financial systems is taxes, because that's another thing that usually feels so heavy. Like, I can almost feel a lot of you just like taxes, like you lost me already. Like, this is way too much. Maybe you had a bad experience. Maybe you got a surprise tax bill. And the thing with taxes is that it doesn't really have to be a surprise. Taxes are never a surprise. They are a surprise when we are not constantly getting the information that we need from the accounting. So in the accounting is when you can see your profit, right? You see, this is how much money you made. These are your expenses. You can get so much information from there. Like, how much am I paying my team members? Am I paying them too much or too little? How much am I overspending in whatever? Do I have room to get more, like increase my top line so that I can have a better profit at the end of the month? You can really stay there a while every single month to get those answers. And one of the most important things that you can get from that stage is to figure out how much to set aside from taxes. Ideally, my recommendation is like at least on a monthly basis. That way, you're ahead of the game. You have money already saved up for taxes. You have saved up every single month. This is separate from your savings account. For, like if something happens, this is just exclusively for taxes. So that the estimated taxes come around, you just pay what you have. The next cycle comes around, you just pay what you have saved up. And then by the time the taxes, like the filing, the IRS taxes in April come around, you have already made those little deposits throughout the year. You have made a really good guess. They're called estimated taxes because they are an estimate. It's not an exact amount, but you're going to be so much closer than going at it blindly. I have heard from so many practice owners that say, my bookkeeping is so simple. I just give my bank statements to my accountant at the end of the year. They figure out how much I have to pay in taxes. I just pay in and that's it. But sometimes you have to deplete your personal savings account because it just so happens that this tax bill was much higher than what you thought. So it's better to look and approach the taxes on a monthly basis. It gives you time to prepare. It gives you the ability to adjust your revenue or your expenses as you need, rather than a 1 year thing. In my opinion, doing it a 1 year, like a one time a year thing, it's kind of like you are just doing it. It's like your accountant's task or their responsibility, rather than if you do it on a monthly basis. Not only you get better at managing your cash because now you have access and a better understanding of your numbers, but now you're the one in control of those numbers. And if you want to put in a little more because you know that you made more this month, then you're ahead of the game instead of just kind of like sit down and just being told what's happening. Um, let's see. Do you recommend this sitting in your business bank account? This is a question from the chat, or keeping this in a separate account. Ultimately, this is going to be what you think. So look at your balance in your bank account, for example. You don't want to just have that, like super close to zero, but it really depends on what your plan is. I would really motivate you to chat with your tax expert, or there are these sessions called tax planning or tax strategy. Uh, Based on that, depending on how long you're going to have that money kind of like sitting there, maybe you can put it in a high yield savings account. You just put it on your personal side and not on the business account. So it really depends. I don't think that there's like one specific right answer. Just evaluate your situation and see where you would rather have it. I'm sorry, I don't have like, in accounting, you'll most likely always have the opening of it really depends. So in this case, it still applies. It really depends. All right, we talked about taxes. Now, this is like the bow on top of everything. Like, you have all of your pieces, and now we have to put them together, right? Like, Andrea, you told me about banks, you told me about bookkeeping, you told me about payment processors, but it still feels like scattered pieces. How do I put it together? Who does what by when is how you put that together. So let me tell you what I mean. Let me actually go to this slide. Putting the pieces together, putting the puzzle together is grabbing all of this and then kind of like putting it in your calendar or in this big plan, which we will call financial systems. And you have to be clear of who is doing, for example, tasks related to your business bank account. And I'm going to give you more examples in a second. By when? So I can tell you this. I can give you 2 plans from now. Like, when we hang up, you go back and you're like, okay, I need to know what I'm going to do. There's no worse feeling that being here, sitting down, getting information, and then you hang up and then you're like, I don't know what to do. So I'm going to give you 2 types of who does what by when plans for you and your therapy practice. The first one is going to be kind of like to build it, right? You are here to learn how to build it. So you're going to grab this information and you're going to have it with the purpose of building your financial systems. So when we look at building your financial systems, what can be like what we could put under business bank accounts? It could be, for example, determining if your current bank account is the one that works for you. If it doesn't, then you have to find a new bank account that you would be happier with, open that bank account, and then get all of your payments plugged into that bank account. Or again, we're in the building phase, your payment processors. Okay, maybe I'm guilty of getting payments from Zelle. I have to get those plugged into my EHR. I have to let my clients know that this is going to change. I have to make sure that the account connected with my EHR is the right one, because now I have a new bank. So I have to do that. So you want to see who's going to do that. Most of these are going to be you in the beginning. What do you have to change it? If you're happy with it, do nothing. And then by when? Give yourself a deadline so that you can stick with your plan. And a lot of these things have to happen at the same time for you to not have a bigger mess. Now, bookkeeping, again, in the building phase, you can decide, maybe is this time to hire her, for example, or reach out to Andrea to help me with the bookkeeping. I don't want to do this anymore, or I have an admin in my group practice that can do that, or I actually love numbers. I'm learning bookkeeping on the side. I think that I would love to do this. I want to try not a spreadsheet because I already tried it and it takes too much time. I'm going to use a software. So choose for the building phase. Financial reports. For the building phase, it could look something like, well, I haven't really looked at financials report before. So what should I look like? Or what should I look for? So in the what is figuring out which reports I have to look for or how to pull them from my accounting software. By when, typically your accounts are going to be reconciled in the early days of the next month. So June, in the first week of June, you're going to have May's numbers already there. So in the 10th to the 15th of June, every month, you know that you're going to look at it. But again, for the building phase, you're just getting accustomed to them. You're not like going super strategy. What does this number look like? It's just the early stages. For taxes, this one is very easy in the sense of you already know the deadlines and they're the same all the time. So you can just work your way backwards. You already know that the next deadline is going to be X, Y, and Z. So I want to be ready the week before. So 2 weeks before, I have to have those numbers ready. That means that the week, you know what I mean? So you just start building that out. And if you need help with this, you already have an accountant that can help you with that. You put like my accountant and me, and then look at the numbers, analyze how much taxes I'm going to have to pay, how much should I put in this on the side, do I need to make a payment, how do I make a payment online, and then by when, you already know the tax deadlines. And if you don't, you can just easily look them up. Just make sure that the website that you're getting them from is from the IRS and not just any other website. So it kind of feels like, like you're putting it together, not just scattered pieces that make sense, but you're putting it together. Another way that you can build this, because obviously I know that we're looking at a screen, is I would recommend you get like index cards and you just title each one of them with these titles. And then you start brainstorming, like maybe on the back you have different ideas or goals or whatever, or what would it look like? And then you write the who, what, by when. Now, this is the building phase. If you want to look at the monthly phase, then we do the same thing, but thinking about it as a monthly cycle. All of these things are going to be repetitive. All of these things, you're expecting them to be the same and to be, the goal is for them to work effortlessly, So if you have a practice management software, you can plug these in slowly, little by little, into your practice management software. This task, I have to do it now. I have to reconcile. So for example, on a monthly basis, your bank accounts, if you hire or you're doing your reconciliations, you need bank statements. So who's going to pull the bank statements? Who are we going to share it with? By when? That's one example of what it would look like for the monthly stuff. Or payment processors, the same thing. You need to pull the report for the payments and the charges and the fees for the payment processors, and you're going to send that to your accountant or your bookkeeper, but you have to make sure that you remove the names of your patients or your clients prior to sending that. So all of the little details, you want to add them in here, because even though you know how to do it or you're learning how to do it, you don't want to put that pressure on yourself of remembering all of it. The whole point of building it like a system is that if you're doing it great, you have this as a guide. If you hire somebody, you just plug them in the system. You're not learning or teaching them from scratch, or you're not kind of like, I hired you, but I don't really know what you should be doing. It's just easy to move people around once you already have the foundation created. Bookkeeping is the same thing with your financial reports. They will usually go hand in hand. If you have payroll, that will be included in here as well. Who does what by when? Do I need to send timesheets? Who's going to reconcile my account? When am I expecting financial reports? Am I going to have a meeting with them? When is that going to happen? All of that. And again, think about this as a monthly cycle. And then finally, taxes. This is kind of like we already covered. The tax deadlines are already built in your year. You just have to plug them in. Now, this is one of the most important things about this is, to me, this is, in my opinion, one of the best parts about this is that not only you can use this, again, like that guide on a monthly basis, assuming we already built it, we already went over that building phase. It takes a lot of effort. It's gonna feel clunky, but you're gonna get over it, knowing that you're gonna build this and it's gonna work recurrently. But then that also gives you two options or two opportunities every month. One is to kind of like audit the process itself. Let's say 6 months from now, your systems are already up and running. It gives you the ability to audit what's working and what's not working. Let's say that you changed your payment processors, or you started something like a new different type of revenue source and you involved a new tech piece. You have a CRM now, or whatever, different sections or softwares involving exchange of money, right? Either to receive or to pay. You can then look at the whole process and see, is there something that continues to come up like as an issue? Is it in the bookkeeping? Is it in the bank spot? Is it the payment process? Or like, what is it that it continues to not let me flow in the process? Because you already have this plan, it's going to be much easier for you to look at it and see, this is it. This is the spot. So now that you have audited your process, then you have the option of editing, and adjust your process. And remember how I said in the beginning that you want to make sure that you build something that will also help you in the future. If you do this monthly, or you kind of include in the process, I'm going to audit my processes every quarter. You don't have to do that every month. Then you will adjust as you go, rather than having to dismantle everything and build it up again because now you have one more thing, or now you decided to make a change in your practice or bring somebody in. Now you have a team. When you started this, it was just you. So there's a lot of different things that could happen that you could potentially have to start from scratch, but I don't want you to do that again. So the more that you're involved with the process and you understand all the moving parts and you understand how they flow together, it's just so much easier to just remove one piece and then fix it or change it and then plug it back in, and then the process will continue. So I'm really, really excited because this, again, gives you the ability to use this to build your systems, use it to analyze what's working, what's not working for you. And then long term, it'll help you have that process run effortlessly. I really like that word. And I really think that it's possible for you to do this whole thing that feels very, very heavy and very, very clunky and hard. It's possible for this to flow effortlessly, and also for you to be the one who calls the shots, and for you to be the one to make those choices and determine what works, what doesn't work for you. Ultimately, this has to work out for you, not just in general. It has to be according to you and what makes sense to you and your practice and your goals. And this gives you that ability to have full control and decide what works, what doesn't work, and I'm going to change it. And now things are better. So, having said that, I would love to hear if you have any more questions, put them in the chat, and I'm happy to address them for you. Let's see. Okay, so I'm looking at the Q&A. There's a question about Zelle that it's interesting about Zelle. So yes, if you look them up, unless something has changed very recently that I am not aware of, we're not supposed to use them for like anything that is HIPAA compliant. Just look up like Zelle and HIPAA compliant and you'll find the answer from their website again, not just anybody else's opinion on it, so that you can make that choice for yourself and you can feel comfortable and confident in the choices that you're making. A different bank draft service you recommend. So do you mean, Grace, this is about your question about how to charge for your clients? In my opinion, the best way to do it is with your EHR. So we can talk a little bit more about that and why I recommend using your EHR for all the payments to receive from your clients. It's because the admin load on you will be reduced significantly. Let's say that you're using an EHR, but you're not using that EHR to charge your payments and they Zelle you. So now you have to look in your bank account that you received a payment from this person. Sometimes the name that appears on Zelle is from a different person. Maybe they're the parent or the spouse, or their first name turns out that it's a different name. So now you have to figure out who this payment is from. And then you have to go back to the EHR and mark it paid there. If you're using a different bank account for some reason, like a personal one, because your business one doesn't accept Zelle, now you have to bring that payment over to the different account. So it just makes the whole process of reconciling your payments so much harder. Now, the second phase of that is that when you receive payments specifically from Zelle, the name of the individual shows up in the bank statement. And let's say that you're using an accounting software that is not you on a spreadsheet, or you using a spreadsheet, that name is going to show up on the bank statement, which ultimately will land in the accounting software that is not HIPAA compliant. So the bookkeepers and the accountants and the software itself has eyes on those names. And that can all be avoided if we just stick with the EHR. Let's see. What is the cost for your service? In general, I like to say that if you talk to 5 different bookkeepers, all 5 of them are going to give you a different price. I invite you to check out my website. This is the QR code for my website, is Liquid Cents Bookkeeping. You're going to see I have different types of services, like support calls, like one-on-one, like QBO troubleshooting, or ongoing support. And we can definitely chat more like one-on-one to see what you're looking for. But I also want to say, like, clearly, if you talk to 5 different people, we will all have different fees because we all have different services. Bookkeepers, even though like the name is bookkeeper, we all do different things. We all offer different things in our packages. So there's actually an article from Heard. I don't think that one is live yet, but it's coming, that I wrote about when to hire a bookkeeper and how to hire a bookkeeper. So you'll get, if you're subscribed to Heard, you'll get the emails for that. I recommend that you go over that. It's so interesting. But I'm biased because I wrote it, but that it'll give you an idea of how that works. But thank you for asking. Andrea says, do you as a bookkeeper need to know laws of the state that the therapist practices in, or is that more about tax prep and not really applicable for bookkeeping? But the bookkeeping side of things is really not going to vary by state. It's more guided by your tax election and your entity. Once you have to file taxes, that's really going to be, if there's something really, really unique to your state, sometimes you have to pay taxes in your city or in your county or in your state. What your bookkeeper will need to know after you have made those payments is what type of taxes those are, so that they can code those properly. Taxes are not a tax deduction, so they should not show up in your P&L. And I like to give things like the more like really good detail to them. So I would say, for example, New Mexico state taxes is the category that I would put for that. And then if there's a different type of taxes that you're paying in your city, then I would probably say local taxes or something like that. I want you to be able to know what you're paying by looking at your reports. But I will have either to get that as a bookkeeper, I would have to have that information either from you, or if you connect me with your CPA. Like, this is all a team that we're working with you. So I encourage you to, if you have 2 different people, to connect them so that they are always on the same page. But yes, so technically the bookkeeper doesn't have to know all of that. It's going to be you, and depending on how you work with your tax preparing. And even so, it's quite interesting to know this. Your tax preparer doesn't even have to be from your own state, unless you have another situation, like your other side, like your personal finances, or you have another business that is like a very unique tax complicated situation, you can work with a bookkeeper or a tax preparer from anywhere. Let's see. I'm going to check the webinar chat to see. Mel, let me know if you see any other questions that you have for me.
Yeah, it looks like we have a question about what bookkeeping systems you recommend.
As in bookkeeping softwares?
Correct.
Okay. There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of free options. There's a lot of them that say, for example, so here's what I would say. Look for something that could work with your banks, like you can actually connect your banks, because that's one of the biggest things. One of the biggest benefits of using a software is the ability to connect your bank to that software so that all of those transactions come in automatically. That's like most of the battle won if you can do that. The other thing that you want to look for in an accounting software is the ability to pull reports, not just profit and loss, but more reports like a balance sheet, a statement of cash flows, anything like that. The other thing that I would look at is the ability to change the chart of accounts. This is like very like accounting, but the chart of accounts is just like the fancy way of saying the categories or the list of categories. So all of those buckets where you're going to put clinical supplies, or they're not going to just appear there because that's not something that everybody has, right? Not every industry has to buy clinical supplies every month. So you want to have the ability to edit those category names so that when you pull those reports, things make a little more sense to you and you don't have to kind of like guess. For example, office expense. Office expense could mean 50 million things for each one of us, right? So I want you to be able to edit those categories so that you can put those expenses in those categories that make sense to you, so that again those numbers can ultimately make sense, right? So one of the softwares that I recommend would be QuickBooks Online or Xero are the ones that I work with. I like them. Now, QuickBooks Self-Employed is not the same thing as QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Self-Employed doesn't let you pull more reports, and it doesn't let you edit the categories, and it doesn't let you reconcile, which is another thing really important to do, reconcile your accounts every month. So QuickBooks Self-Employed is really not a good idea. QuickBooks Online would be, and obviously also a service like Herd as well.
Great. And then another question we had, since we were just talking about financial reporting, is how often should I be looking at my reports?
Ooh, great question here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. How often should I be looking at you should be looking at your financial reports? I would say in a monthly basis or in a quarterly basis. Sometimes when we're getting started, a monthly basis feels like overwhelming because we're still in the phase of building the systems or building our practice. And if we're honest, looking at your financial reports kind of makes, usually most of the time, it's something that makes us feel like not at our best because we don't know that too well. And it can really mess up with how we feel about it, like how we feel about our numbers. So I would say ideally on a monthly basis, but in the beginning, a quarterly basis is also, it's also okay, as long as there are some other types of checking in. Like I don't want you to be fully disconnected from your numbers for every 3 months. Like maybe a meeting with your bookkeeper or your accountant every 3 months to kind of like go more in depth of your numbers for the past 3 months, as long as you have done other check-ins every month. And the financial reports, I would say to start with, just look at your P&L just to start with. And then once you feel like, okay, I can do this, like this makes sense to me, I understand. Another one would be to look at your balance sheet. Your balance sheet tells you the money that you have and the money that you owe. So if you have credit cards or if you have loans, those numbers are going to appear on that report. It doesn't show up on your P&L. So let's say that your P&L tells you you have $10,000 in profit, right? Just to make it an easy number. But then you go to your balance sheet and it shows you, just for exaggeration purposes of the example, you have $50,000 in debt in a line of credit. That gives you a different perspective, right? Like, you made a profit, that was a great number, but then you also have this line of credit to consider. So that gives you 2 points of views of your numbers and helps you make a plan for that profit that you have. Then I would also recommend, again, do this like rolling it out in layers. Another report that I would recommend to look at is your statement of cash flows. Statement of cash flows is literally the report that is going to tell you the movement of the money, like how much money came in. This is what happened in the whole month. And then this is the money that was left at the end of the month. And depending on which platform you're using, it'll tell you like cash in, cash out, or money in the beginning of the period, money at the end of the period. Because something to really, really consider is the amount that you pay yourself if you are a single member LLC, not an S corp on payroll, is that the amount that you pay yourself is not a tax deduction, meaning that should not be on your P&L. So if you have $10,000 in profit, but you pay yourself 12, you're short $2,000, but you wouldn't be able to know that just by looking at the P&L. So that information would be on the other report. So ultimately, after you have, like getting your feet in wet, like you're working with somebody that can explain these numbers to you, ideally, I like to present all of those reports at once so that we understand all of these different perspectives and not just one point of view.
Awesome. I think that ends any of the Q&A. Andrea, thank you so much for breaking down a pretty complicated topic that's quite intimidating. It's so awesome just having you explain these topics. And so hopefully everyone that joined was able to get a lot of clarity around something that's so important. And so, like I said, we will be sending out this recording later today, more information about Andrea. And so thank you all so much. And Andrea, thank you again for spending some time with us.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you everybody for joining. It was great. Thank you so much for your comments and your questions.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.